a lot of people have gotten real charged up because they see, this video, DeMarcus Lawrence talking about how the negotiations went down between him and Steven and Jerry, and then Jerry ultimately stepping in to get it done. Obviously, what went down with Randy Gregory, all the things that we've seen from a lack of activity from free agency. Did these two negotiations on their own, in a lot of ways, expose this front office? We had obviously heard things about how, the Cowboys run things when it comes to their free agency approach or approach with their current players. But did this actually really expose this front office by the way that these two things have gone down for these players, even though DeMarcus Lawrence is still in the fold here?
To a large degree, yes, it did. For those who know how the Cowboys typically handle contract negotiations, none of this is really a surprise. But for what this has done, the Randy Gregory and the DeMarcus Lawrence situations, it's shed a light on the fact that, for example, so Jerry Jones, as I was able to report and several others confirmed, he stepped in and he closed the deal for Randy Gregory before it imploded. DeMarcus Lawrence just indirectly confirmed that's how business went with him as well. Stephen Jones approached him with a 1-year, $10 million offer. DeMarcus Lawrence called it, quote unquote, disrespectful, told him, go ahead and cut me. That Stephen was so taken aback by that. I didn't think he thought that DeMarcus Lawrence would take such offense, which in and of itself is kind of weird, right? But nonetheless, because that's just being tone deaf. But Stephen then had to turn around and say, well, let me take your counter offer to Jerry. But even then, he prefaced
let me see what Daddy got to say about it.
He prefaced it with a good cop, bad cop. He said, oh, well, I'll take it back to my dad, but he's not going to like this at all. So if I'm DeMarcus Lawrence, I'm feeling the same way Randy Gregory felt. I'm feeling the same way several other free agents have felt who have come and gone through the Cowboys front and back doors over the years.
Now, let me just talk to Jerry about it.
Why am I talking to you?
Yeah, why am I talking? I'm going to go to management.
Why am I talking to you?
Yeah.
Just put your mama on the phone.
Yeah.
Put your daddy on the phone.
Yeah.
All right. Let me talk to your boss. So that's kind of the light that's being shown on it now, because another thing is it's being revealed. Well, a lot of us behind the scenes knew, but it's being revealed to potential free agents and other GMs around the league that not only is Jerry Jones not really engaged in every single negotiation, but Stephen Jones isn't even engaged in every single negotiation. A lot of the negotiations are kind of handoffs to the cap specialist, and then once that is mostly agreed to, then it's passed to Stephen, and then Stephen, gives his cap yes or no, et cetera, et cetera. And then it might get ran by Jerry to say, okay, this is what we worked out. And then Jerry says, who is it again? Okay, I guess that looks good because et cetera, et cetera. But in a situation where it's a player like Gregory or Lawrence or Dak Prescott. So keep in mind, they almost lost DeMarcus Lawrence because Jerry hadn't chimed in yet. That's what really helped elongate and lengthen negotiations between them and DeMarcus Lawrence. That's why the second franchise tag came around. It was because Jerry hadn't gotten involved yet. But when Jerry and Steven collectively called DeMarcus Lawrence that fateful night in April and said, hey, what's going on? Let's talk about this man-to-man. The deal got done within 24 hours. That should have been the lesson learned to say, you have to treat these guys with respect.
Like grown men.
These are grown men.
You know what? And again, referencing back to a conversation I had with CA earlier today, he had a really interesting point that I'll be interested to see how it plays out. That this whole negotiation has basically put on the table publicly that other organizations can now use this as a leverage point. Like, oh, okay, we've got to compete with Dallas for this guy. All right, well, go let Dallas know we're taking this language out. Go see if they'll take the language out too. And then what this does is it puts Dallas in a place where either they dig in on that and they're going to start losing people to organize because this, or they go, okay, fine, we'll relent on it. And then you ultimately are relenting on something that you lost Randy Gregory to and you shouldn't have dug in on. And so it's just, is
this front office inept?
It can be.
I think they have their moments. I think overall, I think there are things they do really well. I think their organizational structure and related to the draft and other things, can be, I think.
It can be. I don't want to make the sweeping judgment simply because I've seen good done. Okay. Now, sometimes it takes longer than it needs to, right? I've seen good finally done on getting the deal done with DeMarcus Lawrence. We saw, good finally get done with Dak Prescott. Now, of course, you had to pay for that on the back end because you should have gotten the deals done prior to the incumbent contract expiring in the first place. Okay, so that's the bad you take with the good. You look at what Will McClay brings to the table, and he's a part of this front office, right? Is Micah Parsons here without Will McClay? We will never know. Is Trevon Diggs here without Will McClay? The list goes on and on. Are we celebrating getting Neville Gallimore as a day 2 pick, but he's a starting 1 tech / 3 tech for the Cowboys? So you have those type of big wins that are on the Cowboys resume. Zach Martins and Tyron Smith when Tyron was completely durable. Travis Frederick before his unfortunate bout with Guillain-Barré syndrome that forced him into retirement. The Cowboys as a front office, as this collective front office, they have enough hits to prove to me that they know how to win, but they also have just enough demerits to keep being losers.
Because what bothers me now is that we've seen how much these negotiations have been publicly exposing negotiation tactics, the way they approach players.
Correct.
If I'm approaching free agency going forward now, either A, I'm going to stick with what I've been doing because I think this is the best way to approach team building, or I need to take a look at modern NFL roster building and say, we can't approach players and deal with them like this because guys talk around the league.
Oh, yes.
They know what's going on.
Oh,
They've
yes.
seen how this is all played out. Why would a player in their own good mind say, I don't know if I want to go there based on what I perceive is going on, based on what other guys are telling me on what's happening with their negotiations?
Which, as we're sitting here all talking about where the front office is and stuff like that and some of the tough questions they have to answer, Sean just tweeted that somebody's asking about talking to Jerry and Steven, and Sean said that Jerry declined a request to come on today and that they're waiting on Steven. So at the very least right now, they've gotten Jerry didn't want to come on and talk about, I guess, Randy's situation or in general where things are at.
What did I say?
And
He was
Steve,
living.
they're waiting on Steven.
So for those that are putting out contrary information saying, oh, well, no, Jerry isn't met. There's a reason Jerry has declined to come on just yet. He needs to cool down. Gregory was a huge investment of time, belief, and hope.
Years worth.
And all it took was Jerry closing the deal and then walking out of the room, and then someone else caused it to explode. But getting back to the free agency point, I think the Cowboys are far too sold on what used to be true, but is no longer necessarily the case. What used to be true is playing for the Cowboys was this luxurious, shiny gig in the NFL, right? But when you look at the landscape of the league right now, there are shinier vehicles to hop into.
Los Angeles for
one, okay? There are shinier vehicles to hop into. And the Cowboys, they still believe that they're the top of the mountain when it comes to free agents. Jerry Jones said it himself directly a few weeks ago when he said, everybody wants to play for the Cowboys. No, that's not true, because of if out of 20 free agents, if 10 come out and say they want to play for the Cowboys, only 3 actually do, and the other 7 are using the Cowboys as leverage to get higher salaries and higher contracts elsewhere, right? You could arguably say Von Miller did that. Maybe he did not, but I do truly believe, and KG, you and I talked about this off the air, we do truly believe Von Miller wanted to be here, and he wanted to be the homecoming king and put up some numbers in front of his home crowd. But I think, again, the Cowboys, they feel like this is 1993. They feel like, coming to play for the Cowboys is this big deal.
Like
and
Mike
it can
Irvin,
be, but
he's not walking through that door, man.
Yeah,
Troy not walking through that door.
It's only a big deal when you get more hardware. But here, and I'll say this, and I'll lob it back to you guys. Here's what I think upsets fans the most. It's the human nature aspect of it. It's human psychology. Inconsistency is infuriating, okay? If you're a fan of the Cowboys, you would prefer them be elite, figure out how to be elite for a 4 or 5 year span, and then if you're going to suck as you're rebuilding,
take it all the way out.
Yeah, just clean everything out, and so we can lower our expectations over the next 3 to 4 years, because we know that you're rebuilding, and as our expectations are lowered, we are no longer as furious when this doesn't go right or that doesn't go right, because it's a rebuilding stage. But year in, year out, you never know what you're getting with this team. So you might get the 12-5 team that goes one and done in the playoffs, or you might get 4 and 13, because it's 17 games now. So you might get 4 and 13. You don't know, and that's what's infuriating to a lot of fans. On top of the fact that It's the definition of insanity. You have bought into this formula of bargain shopping in free agency and going hard in the draft. Nobody's knocking how you're drafting. For the most part, you're drafting wonderfully. But don't let what you do so well in the kitchen affect your belief of what you need to clean up in the living room. Okay?
Yep.
So you're a fantastic chef, but you haven't vacuumed your living room in 3 years. Right? You got to be good at doing two things. So I say that to say you need to break out of this this tight-pocketed approach to free agency, and you're going to have to break that pattern, because life is patterns. And if now you're stuck in a pattern, and if you refuse to break it, you're going to keep getting the same results over and over and over again. And that's why you lost a guy like Randy Gregory, because you tried to handle him the same way you tried to handle Tank, but it worked out with Tank. So you say, oh, it'll work out with Gregory. Guess what? It did. So now these ramifications are going out. So now maybe Zadarius Smith, we're doing homework on him. Maybe he gave you a call and said, hey, I saw what happened with Amari Cooper, and I heard what you tried to do with your other edge rusher, and then I saw what happened with Randy Gregory contract. So we're just going to cut down to brass tacks. What are you offering? I'm not feeling that. I'm going home to Baltimore. Right?
Yeah.
You're trying to woo Bobby Wagner. Yeah. Not to say Bobby Wagner wouldn't be interested in coming, but you don't smell good right now.
Yeah.
You don't. The cologne you're wearing only smells good to you right now. So be careful. Be careful. You might want to head back to Macy's and get a different bottle.